Hey, what's up everyone? Today we're going to be doing some maintenance on the Eco 150. Particularly what we're going to be doing is cleaning the carburetor, as well as cleaning and lubing the chain. Now this is a very common bike in South Africa. It's used as the delivery bike a lot. It's manufactured in India, so it's manufactured for environments that are pretty harsh, and so the reliability I feel is pretty good. It's also a very simple bike to work on. It's a carbureted bike, single cylinder 150cc, so it's really easy to work on, really easy to understand, and parts are readily available. So let's get right into this video. This is going to be part of a series on the maintenance of this bike and any future bikes I do have. But as I said today, let's get straight into the maintenance and cleaning of the carburetor. So this right here is the carb. What it's responsible for is to mix the fuel and air before it goes into the engine for combustion. And so some of the problems we notice when the carb is not clean, or it's a bit blocked from old fuel or dust or anything like that, is lower performance at high speeds, particularly right at the top end. We can also notice things like difficulty starting. So it's anything related to fuel and air issues, because as we see, the air comes in from here, it gets mixed with the fuel here, and then it gets sent into the engine right over there. And so anything regarding performance, fuel economy, a lot of the times is due to the carburetor not being cleaned or the jets being clogged. So that's the reason why we're going to be cleaning it today. Now this is the other side of the carb. As you can see, the fuel line comes in from here and then goes into the carb there. And so I do notice on mine there is some grease at the bottom and it's a little bit dirty. Also, in addition to that, the performance hasn't been 100%. So in order to rule out anything else, the first and most simple thing we can do is clean this carb. I've had it for about 20,000 Ks now and I haven't cleaned it, so it's definitely time to clean it. Now the first thing we want to do is just put it on the double stand in order for us to have more space to work on it with. The next thing we're going to do is close the fuel petcock so that no fuel comes out when we disconnect the lines. Once we've done that, we're going to go and actually disconnect the lines from the fuel line and the fuel tank, as well as the line into the carburetor. The next thing we'll do is we're going to flush the fuel from the bowl. So we're going to just flip this part over here into a horizontal position. That switches the fuel coming out of here off, so it can't pass there. Obviously when we take out these pipes, there might be a little bit of fuel inside, so just make sure that you wipe that up, because fuel is highly flammable and we don't want that to light on fire. The other thing we need to do is we come to this side, and once we've disconnected from this side, we need to loosen a screw here and let the empty fuel just come out of here and just drop onto the ground. So this is the fuel that's remaining inside this. So when we switch the main petcock off, the carburetor still has some fuel inside here. So that's why we need to unscrew that and release that fuel before we take it out. So we're just going to use a long nose plier in order to remove this pipe right here. You just press that in, those two tabs, which opens that up, and then we can pull the pipe below that level. So as you can see, there was obviously some fuel inside there, which is now done. If this was open, that was going to be leaking out quite a lot. So obviously now that we have fuel on the floor, we must obviously be careful not to have any sparks or any ignitions or anything, as that could light on fire. Next we'll go to the other side in order to remove any fuel that's in this bowl. Now this fuel emptying line over here is going to fall out down there. So we can just unscrew this. And all the fuel that was inside the bowl is now going to come onto the floor. It's obviously not ideal for it to be on the floor, but it will dry up eventually. So once that's out of the bowl, we can just go ahead and just tighten that again. Obviously not tightening it too much, otherwise the screws are going to strip, but just tightening it enough that it seals. So now the shop manual does suggest that we remove the top tank first, but in order for us to remove this, I personally don't think we need to take out this whole thing, and then we're going to have to open the seat, we're going to have to open the sides, we're going to have to open all of these. So just to make it easier, we're not going to do that. We're simply just going to remove that, remove the cables on the other side and on this side, and then we'll just be able to take it out from there. So it's not what the service manual suggests, but it's what we're going to do. Now on this side, which is the right side of the bike, we're going to remove these screws to take out the throttle cable. So we're just going to use a star. Whenever you're taking out screws, you always want to remember where you took the screw out of and which hole it goes into. Because sometimes the screws are of different sizes and they obviously serve different purposes. And so if we take it out of the wrong place, when we reassemble it, we'll end up finding that it doesn't fit properly, which is not the best. So we take out this cover, and then the next thing we're going to do is take out the throttle cable. So for that, we're going to use a spanner. The spanner looks like a 10, so we're just going to use a 10 spanner. And we're going to loosen this top on here. We also kind of want to remember the position that it was in, so that when we do put it back, it's sort of adjusted in the right way. So in addition to taking out this one, we're going to also take out this one here. So we can easily just do it like that and just pull it out. And we'll just keep this here for now. Then next we're going to go to the other side in order to remove the cables and any other things that we need to take out before we take out the actual air pipes. So the first thing that we're going to remove is this, which I think is the throttle position sensor. We just press that tab and then it will just release. Now you don't obviously want to break this cable because it's important in how the engine fires. It's not necessary, but not having it will mean your engine doesn't really work optimally. Then the next thing we need to do is remove the choke cable, which is that one over there. It goes all the way up to the handlebar. And then if I'm not mistaken, also this other pipe here. Okay, so I just checked the manual now. We need to remove this. This is the air vent hose. And then we use a spanner in order to take the choke cable out. So here, once again, we're gonna use okay, that one was very loose, so we could just take it out easily. We're just gonna push that to the side, and then on this one, we're gonna use a spanner in order to take that one out. So now a 15 spanner seems to fit that. So we're just gonna go ahead and loosen that one. So once we've gotten it screwed out of there, we're gonna see that there's a spring on the inside and this over here. So for now we don't necessarily need to do anything with that. We can just leave this here. And then what we're gonna do now is we're gonna remove these two ends and we should be able to take out the carb. So let's just leave that here for now. So now everything is disconnected, other than obviously this line at the bottom, but we don't need to disconnect that. And then we're going to use a star to remove these two. Now in the manual it does say that we need to watch the orientation of these, but obviously we're just going to remember it from how it is. The one on the engine side is on the top, and the one from the airbox side is at the bottom. But obviously I'm going to have this video, so if anything goes wrong, we can always refer back to it. I also do think when you are repairing things, especially if it's your first time or you're learning, it's very important to take pictures and work from the manuals, because that gives you a lot more flexibility in how you go about doing those things, because you kind of have a guide of what to do and how to do it and where things go. You can also figure it out for yourself, but it's a lot easier when you have the manuals, as that's what they were designed for. So I can feel it's already quite loose here on the engine side. The airbox side is still a little bit tight. We also must be very careful not to actually break any of these, otherwise then we're going to need to replace them. So we want to be very gentle with these rubber and plastic parts. Okay, now I was finding it a little bit difficult to remove especially this side, because once we remove this side it'll come out from that side. So I found it a bit tough to do. So what I think we want to do is now we're going to remove just this part of the body. That's going to give us access to the back of the airbox, and we're going to be able to pull this more to that side. So I just removed this clamp a little bit more, just to move it a little bit over to that side, so it'll apply less pressure here over the opening. And once we've done that, now we can see it easily comes out. And that other side also just pops out. And then this one, we'll just remember how the cable is, or this tube is ran. It's just down through the bottom there. And so now we have our carb. You can see this carb is really dirty, but we're gonna go ahead and clean it now. So now we're just gonna disassemble the carb into this thing. We're gonna use this, just a generic carb cleaner, in order to clean all the passages and stuff in there. So the first thing we can do is we can just take off this bottom pipe. We'll just leave that to the side. And then we're going to take off the top, which I think is housing the needle jet. Now there is a spring inside that's holding that jet in place. And so we can remove one side first. We'll just put that screw there. But you just want to hold that so that the spring doesn't fly out and your needle jet also. So as you can see, that's there. You also want to be very careful once that's out. This over here is a very sensitive diaphragm, so you also don't want to tear that, as that's then going to impact the performance of your bike. So next we're going to unscrew that little holder inside and then take out the jet. So sometimes it can just come out like that, and there you can see this is the body of the carb, and this is the needle jet inside that was held in by the holder. So we're going to just put that inside here, and then next we're going to take out the bowl. So this bowl seems to be held in by 3 screws here. So we're just going to take those ones out. Always be gentle when putting the screws in or out, as you don't want to break these components. Now the bowl we can just take out, and there's going to be a float mechanism just there. There's some sensitive parts here, so don't use any sort of twisting force or any forcing it if it's not coming out. So as we can see, we're going to need to replace these gaskets. Obviously when we're taking these things out, then to be safe we want to put new ones. But also in addition to that, we can actually see the build-up along the sides here and even inside. Next we're going to take out the pin that holds this bowl in place. So we just push something onto the one side, just gently slide it out, put that in there, and we can now take out the bowl. The next thing we're going to do is just unscrew these 2 jets. As that's actually the main thing that I wanted to clean in this. Because when they get clogged, that's when we notice our performance issues. So we just gently unscrew them. So this first one, the top part comes off. We can just put that to the side. Then this other one, we'll also just unscrew that. Also very gently. So really what we're aiming to do is clean all of these things so that there's no build up or problems anywhere inside here. Now the final thing that we want to open is our choke section. So we're just going to remove these 2 screws. And And so we're also going to want to replace these gaskets here. Now we can just buy a carburetor gasket kit, and these come with all the gaskets that you need for this particular replacement. And so let's first open it. And then we'll see we have two sets of gaskets, the one for the float bowl and the other one for the choke circuit, and then these other two ones. So we can start cleaning it now. Now I actually want to start cleaning it from this side, cleaning out the jets. So we want to use our spray and obviously just clean everywhere, but also make sure that we go into the jets so that if there's any blockages or things being clogged, they easily come out. So we basically just want to go anywhere where any sort of buildup could come from, and just let that liquid just clean out all of those places. Now remember, we're going to replace this one, so we can just take out this gasket and clean where the gasket was to ensure that no debris or dirt. Now I'm just gonna, now that these have sort of soaked in this, I'm just gonna empty this dirty fluid and then put the items there again and give them one last spray to ensure that they're fully clean and that fluid has just soaked inside. And as I said, these little jets are really what's important, that we make sure that they're clean, because that's really what affects the performance drastically when they're not. Now I always like to see how the throttle actually works. So when we use the throttle on the bike, the air comes from here and then the fuel gets sucked from the bottom. And when we use the throttle on the bike, this thing opens. So basically that's what the throttle is controlling. And then because of the way the physics of the engine works, the spark as well as the vacuum and the combustion that happens sucks the air in. So when we open that in, the carburetor gives more fuel based on obviously how it was designed, but then that gets sucked in to where the cylinder is. So it's a really cool design of how they did that. And it always fascinates me to see how simple of a thing can power vehicles. I'm just gonna leave that for maybe an hour or two. Just let that soak. Any sort of excess buildup can just come out of there. And then we're gonna reassemble that and put that back in. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna be adjusting the tension on the chain, lubing it and cleaning it. So now while we're waiting for that to dry, we're gonna clean and adjust our chain. So firstly, this is way too slack on the chain. If it's slack, it's gonna end up damaging the sprockets as well as the chain. And also if it's not cleaned and lubricated, what ends up happening is you start to get stiff joints, and then that ends up just obviously impacting the performance of the bike, the longevity of the chain. So what we're gonna do is just firstly, we're gonna wanna clean the chain. And once we're happy that the chain is clean, then we're just gonna adjust it slightly so that it's tighter. Right now it's very slack. We want it to be only have about this much movement, whereas now it's almost like double what we actually want. So I don't actually have any cleaner for the chain at the moment, but what we're just gonna do is just use a cloth to wipe it as we go around. That way all the debris is off, or as much as possible is off. I'm decently happy with that. This is a new chain, it's probably got about 2000 Ks on it. So normally we'd check the sprockets as well as the chain to see if there's any kinks or if there's any problems with it. But as I'm saying, because it's a new chain, I don't necessarily need to worry about that. Maybe when we're closer to 15,000 or so, 12,000 up, we'd want to check that. And obviously our sprockets, we also want to always check to see if our sprockets are wearing out or they're still in good shape. Now the next thing we're going to do is I want to first tighten the chain so that it's not as loose, and then we're going to lubricate it. So this one I always get confused with, but we have a 32 or a 30, and we have a 19, and we have a 17 on that side. Now this one and that side are connected, and this one over here, the outside, the big one, holds this side, which means we're gonna need to hold this one in place while we loosen the other side. And then when we want to loosen this side, we just use the 32 in order to unclamp this on the side. And then we can start to adjust these ones to pull it forward or backwards in order to create more tension on the chain. So for now, we're going to use the 17 and the 19 in order to remove the right hand side or get it loose. Okay, so actually it's a correction. On this side is the 22 and that side is a 19. So actually the 19 is on this side and the 22 is on that side. So now we hold this one in place while we remove the other side. So you'll feel it getting loose. You don't want to take it out all the way. We just want to loosen it. Then we take out 32. And we loosen that one. So we don't need to do it too much, just to the point where we can now move this. Then we use our 10 in order to loosen the first nut. You can just give that some space. Try not to move the second one because that's going to be the adjusting nut that creates the tension. Now remember, because we want this tighter, what we need to do is we need to pull it. When we pull it, this will get tighter. So if we want this thing to pull, what we do is we screw in our adjusting nut. So when this screws in, it pulls this out, meaning that gets tighter. Now whatever we do on this side, we're also going to do on that side. So we're going to initially start with, that's 1/4. And that's 2/4, which is 1/2. And we can already see that it's starting to change the tension. So we do the same on this side. That's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And we want to adjust both at the same time, because if we adjust one to the right tension, it might seem right here, but when we adjust the other side, it's going to pull it tight. So now I feel it's still a bit loose. So we do 2 on each side. That's 1, 2, 1, 2. And now we can see it's looking much better. It's much tighter. And it's more or less a better spec. After that, we can go ahead and tighten our lock nut. We want to ideally keep the adjusting nut in place. So to do that, I'm just going to use the long nose plier and just grab the first one while tightening the lock nut. So now that's pretty tight. And we do the same to the other side. So now those are tight. And as we can see, the tension is much better. Then what we need to do is re-tighten that. So because this is loose, it can still slightly move. All we adjusted was these things that adjust the tension, meaning that we still need to maintain the correct tension that these adjusted while we're tightening these. So I notice if I pull the wheel this way, this side is very loose, but this side is tight. However, if I pull it more to this side, that side is much better, and so is this side. Now also, I have measured and aligned my wheel, so I know that when I adjust these two, they are more or less in alignment, and so I don't have to worry about aligning them again. So now we're just going to go ahead and tighten these. So the way I like to do that is just tighten one side a little bit, just so that it holds it in place and maintain the correct tension. And then we tighten the other side. So this we want to make sure is really tight, because this is obviously our wheel. We don't want our wheel to come loose while we are riding. So that's going to be very bad. So now that side is quite tight and it's in place. Now let's just tighten this side. So I feel like that's good. Now we check the tension. And as we can see, it's much better. Could be a little bit better, but I'm fairly happy with that. Now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and lubricate our chain. So we've cleaned it, we've aligned it, tightened it. Now we're gonna just go ahead and lubricate. Now one test we can do, which I like to do, is just spin the wheel in order to see if there's any areas on the chain that are tight. So if you have something like this and then the wheel stops and it gets tight in a certain section, you know there's a problem somewhere on your chain and it most likely needs to be replaced or serviced. But if you just do this, you should just have the wheel just rotating and spinning. That's how you know that your chain is healthy. We also want to look for any kinks or places where the chain is not sitting flush. So for now it feels like that's good. I'm happy with that. Next we can go back into completing the assembly of the carburetor. So now we're going to start reassembling our carburetor, starting with the gaskets. So I'm first starting with the sections that the gaskets go on. The first being the choke. And then next we're going to do the float bowl. And then we're going to do the vacuum part. That's now our completely cleaned and fixed carb, ready for action again. So now we basically need to go ahead and redo everything that we did. And now it's a moment of truth. I've connected everything here. Gonna open the fuel. Just check once more to see that everything is connected. Now let's start it. Okay, so it does work. Now we're just gonna put on the seat. There's another thing I need to just tighten, and then we're ready to roll. So basically that was doing the maintenance tasks, specifically the carburetor, the chain tension, as well as cleaning it. And then I just did a bonus of fixing the speedometer cable, which had snapped a while back. But as you can see, the maintenance on this bike is fairly easy. It's a really simple bike to work on. There's not really that much electronics on it. And I think these simple bikes are honestly great to learn on if you want to learn to work on bikes and work on cars. It's really basic. It's also fun. It's pretty cheap. Buying these parts is very economical. It really doesn't cost much. And even if you break one, you can easily just get spare parts. So I would say overall, if you do have this bike, it's very easy to work on it. Parts are readily available. It's also pretty fun. If you have the time and the mechanical side of things is something that does interest you, I would definitely recommend yourself to do some maintenance on it. And I've learned a lot working on this bike, also just riding it a lot. So thank you guys for watching. The next time I do some maintenance on this bike, I will be posting a video. Hopefully over time I do build up a catalog specifically on this bike about how to do pretty much everything on it, from the small services to the major things. But I hope you learned something, and yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.